As we now get into the discussion, and this one we cannot fail to address. Honorable Gakuya, Thuge throws boss under the bus. DPP asks court to set free former Treasury PS after he agrees, as you know, to shed more light on who originated the project and authorized the construction and payments. This is also a story that has been captured on all the papers in regards to the Aurora and Kimorel Dam. Are we really going to get answers? Is there, some, beam of hope in regards to just getting answers of this?
My take on this is that Thuge was part and parcel of those who require to respond to the queries that actually have been always there. Yeah. Because one, he's the one that the law taxed to be the one in charge. Because in this particular case, he was a PS. And his boss, the CS, I don't think that there's anything that can be done within a ministry without having gone through the process where the PS have said, yes, we are certified, we have money, we have everything, let us proceed on that. Therefore, Thuge cannot tell Kenyans that he was not part of what transpired. And in case there is what we call new evidence, which probably he was unable to give out during those time of investigation, it's always important to respect such a kind of an opinion, because we don't know. As I have said, he was in the kitchen. So he knows a lot about what transpired. Yeah. In case there were issues that were done under the carpet, it's high time he must let the Kenyans know, so that at least we can know the truth of the matter. But my only question is, does he want to say that in fact things were done by his boss, the CS, and actually he was nowhere to inform the Kenyans at that point, yes, when things were going down, when things were nose diving? He kept quiet, and this is the time that he feels is the right time now to through the beans. Anyway, well, we are going to wait and see. We are not far. We are here. Let us wait to hear from him what is new and what was not known at that point in time. And indeed, it's a common legal occurrence, Honorable Farah, Maalim, when you see some of the people who are implicated in such cases now shifting to this other side, or legally being taken to this other side as state witnesses, or maybe as witnesses in regards to the crucial cases. Are we likely to get answers looking at this shift and turn of events?
Both of them are people who have very impeccable credentials and who have had stints with the Bretton Woods institutions, and who understand very well the workings of the government. So let's see. I mean, in law, where anybody brings evidence, it's not fair for us to prejudge. Let us see what Thuge is going to bring to the floor, or rather to the courts, and let's watch this thing as it unfolds. I think it's not fair for us to pass judgments on matters that are in court already, because that's sub judice, because you can't have you keep your opinions to yourself, and you watch as these things unfold, and let's follow it as it continues. I think that's the best way and the only way out of this particular disaster we are in terms of management of public funds is concerned. So let's just watch it.
Here are, stories that are in court. We talk of the Nairobi gubernatorial headache that continues in the country. Sonko suffers blow as bid to halt Kananu's vetting hits at the snag, and a couple of other stories that have been captured right here, and we probably might not be able to go there. It's tough at the Capedo Triangle again as chaos erupt. It's pretty much an unfortunate occurrence, but high-level security teams have been deployed to address that, or to quell these uncertainties on matters education and so much so. But gentlemen, let's pick these key stories that now direct us to the conversation of the morning, 2022 game plan. And I'd love for us to take it a little bit different today, because I would want us to take an approach of just looking at what it is, or the cards that we have on the table right now, and just look at the possibilities of them, being instrumental in the conversation on changing guard come 2022, or technically what it is that we have as a country. We'll start off, of course, with the latest coming from the ANC that has directed or has started that conversation of impeaching the DP with grounds of saying that he is trying to curtail what it is that the president is doing, which is probably something that should be looked at as, a bad thing, especially when people are in government together and are supposed to speak in the same voice. So we look at this, the main stories right here on the People Daily. Headache of picking 2022 running mate, with talk of other communities occupying State House. Aspirants are weighing their number 2 options, but none seems to quite deliver the silver bullet. And taking us to the other newspapers briefly, as I've said, this will be guiding our conversations this morning. Now Mudavadi goes for Ruto. I think I've touched on that. That is in regards to that conversation by the ANC party, speaking of impeaching the DP, or pushing for that motion to impeach the DP. And on the Daily Nation, fresh threat to push Ruto out. Yes, Ruto under siege. New war of words against Deputy President William Ruto erupt. That is yesterday, with MPs allied to that is President Kenyatta, ODM leader Raila Odinga, and ANC Musalia Mudavadi telling the DP to resign or face impeachment over his utterances against the head of state. And gentlemen, here we are. I guess that would be the first bit that we pick it up from. This conversation is taking a different direction. I remember sometimes in 2018, and even before, right after the 2017 conversation, the 2022 campaigns, or the 2022 conversation or succession conversation started almost immediately in what has been a huge undoing to the Jubilee Party. This conversation being, driven by ANC, do you suppose it holds water? Remember, it's not the first time that we're having this. At some point in time, it was quelled, but again, here we have it again.
Thank you, leader. Let me say, the worst case this nation is doing, and the worst danger we are taking as a nation, is to think in lines of what we call the political headlines. Mm-hmm. Today, ANC says they are going to impeach the DP. This is not the first time we are hearing of it.
Yeah.
Then, tomorrow, we'll have another headline where the DP supporters will respond. Then the whole nation will swing that way. At the end of the day, like you've said, since 2018, if we can pick that one topic and analyze it, mm-hmm. then we will end up realizing it's all chasing after the weed.
Yeah.
That's all I would say. It's
all right.
All chasing after the weed. Because after all said and done, we must look at events that has happened in the past. Then we can look at where we are. Then most likely we can see where we are going. Mm-hmm. By the time we were voting Uhuru in 2013, 2 years before that was in 2010, it was not a conversation. It was not a conversation. So why are we having a conversation now, of about 2022 in 2018? It has taken us circles and circles and all around. And what we are missing as a nation is that we have shifted from talking about the 45 million people as a nation, and now we are looking at 45 million people as voters.
Okay.
Which is very unfortunate. And that's how we might end up with a situation that we never thought we were in the first place. Mm-hmm. Can we have a conversation about 45 million people as a nation? Then we talk about 2 or 5 aspirants who want to be either a president or a governor or an MP. But of late, we've started the other way around. 2 aspirants, then all Kenyans later.
Okay.
So, after all said and done, this nation is bigger than an individual.
All right.
That statement should be in our mind, and we should think about it. Mm-hmm. All these we are seeing will not be there. Next year, same time, same day, mark my word, all these headlines will not be there.
Oh yeah, all right. How much political stamina then would the ANC have to have the confidence to instigate this conversation?
Coming to the big monster in the house,
Yeah.
we did witness last weekend the big bash at the burial of Modava's mother, where kingpins from Western Province put a lot of pressure to the head of state, a big pressure, and it was like, yes, it's not a burial any longer, it's like a political match.
Yeah.
And finally, I guess that's where the head of state was pushed to come out with at least a roadside declaration that he may propose.
Okay.
He may propose for what we call now a break of two tribes for presidency, and at least the country, the things that actually it has grown to look for a different direction. To me, the pressure of these positions is too much in this country, and I don't know why we think it is life and death to become a president. I don't think that in fact Kenyans up to this point, they are not satisfied with what the constitution has given to them. Yeah. There were no such kind of entities like devolution, where all 47 region of this country in terms of counties today, they have their own government, which is their local domestic government of a local county. I don't know what urge is here and what curiosity is here that now every community must see itself clinking to the power. And it's like we didn't address this well in the current constitution, because I thought we have dealt with it. Because anybody who feels he cannot cling to the presidency, he can cling to the governor of his own area, and it's also a position. But if we must say one has to become a president, one has to become a prime minister, one has to become so and so, it is telling us that it may be impossible. One, this country must be driven by what we call budgets. If it is a pressure that the current Kenyans cannot be able to buy, then you must find out whatever the kind of road you want to put up to them. And at this point, where are they? Are they going to accommodate extra baggage in terms of political baggage?
You're talking about the BBI West will be coming to you.
No, let me finish.
All right.
In this particular case, I want to conclude by saying this. It is not bad for any community to think that it can rule this country, and strategizing is a matter of the game. Politics is a game of numbers, and mobilizing numbers is not a problem. What is a problem is to put this country into that election mode all through, that actually our people does not engage in hard work, and actually there will be, yes, if we can tone down this tone, and the president sometimes was holding it. Today, and
I think that would have been my next question. Just, what informed this turn from the presidency? He says, that sometimes in 2019, my choice for the presidency will shock you. But forget politics for now and focus on service delivery, focus on the legacy, and let's overlook 2022 politics. Fast forward, it's a different tone from the president. But before we even react on that, Honorable Farah Maalim, for someone who's, observed the historical events on matters politics, it would be, uncalled for to even imagine that you would overlook these threats that are coming on board for the DP. What is happening right here in America is a good example that indeed, even when it's almost, in white and black, that this president is not going to be at the top of the helm soon, they still have a conversation on matters impeachment. So this I know one in particular in the country that has been triggered by ANC. What do you make of it, and why is it that there's constant, conversations revolving around impeaching the DP? Just how bad is he performing as a deputy president of the current government?
Well, I think many people are having a hangover of the old loyalty frame of the transaction of Kenyan politics, where the number two must always follow lockstep with the number one. But things have changed. Number two is not there now at the pleasure of the number one. I do not have many kind words for him as a person. I'm talking about Deputy President Ruto. But I think talking of impeachment this time is pretty much a situation that is the fact that everybody is politicking, and he's not the only one who's politicking. That includes also the president himself and the rest of us also. I think talking of impeachment at this stage, in my opinion, is not, it's a little bit far-fetched. But what I also know is that his own backyard, the president's backyard, as a way of protecting his own legacy, might want to push for something like that so that he can get somebody who is not looking at 2022, but who is going to help him deliver on a few things of what he has promised before within this 1.5 years. Because the president is not going to be a candidate from the look of things in the next election. In any case, we don't see him coming back as a prime minister or any other position, because the term limit is still there. It's not been, it's not part of the bill. It's not part of this removal of the term limit. It's not part of the proposed draft bill. So for him to insist on getting somebody who can help him push his agenda for purposes of his own legacy, I can see that concern in his own backyard, but I don't see that concern in our backyard or ANC or Wiper, or in my opinion. Although when this matter comes to Parliament for purpose of impeachment, then it involves everybody. And because of the threshold
all right, well,
of too much ado about nothing. Nobody should be bothered with that. And the president can sideline him, which he has already done, as far as I can see, because when he appointed Matiang'i and all the other people to take over critical roles that used to be played by the deputy president, that is an indication that he has no faith. He has absolutely no trust or faith in him, and has already allocated his own functions to other people within his government. So I don't see where there's a problem. He is running around the country and literally undermining a few things that the president is holding very close to his own chest. But by removing him and impeaching him, that doesn't change anything. He actually gets a more freer hand to do it. Right. So in my opinion, the best thing the president can do is and those people who are looking at post 2022 or for 2022 is to ignore him completely. And he can only run around so much. He has, the resources are limited. The country is having an economic downturn, and I don't think he's getting all the money that he used to get before, because since the election of 2017. So he will burn himself out, undoubtedly, because when he runs around in the country, there's cost involved, and I don't think anybody can sustain that kind of cost.
And many would.
What about in case all these road plans for impeaching the deputy president? Because at the end of the day, it is the National Assembly to decide.
Yes.
That is where the commencement of this impeachment will, and at the end of the day, it will go to vote.
Right.
If the vote will not carry the 2/3 of the day, then the impeachment stands dropped.
Yes.
Therefore, In case the process will commence and fail, what other strategies do you think that they have in their card that will force this fellow out of the government? Because sure, unless they resign both.
And don't you suppose then, well, that's another conversation that is there, and maybe coming to you, Goko. And reality is that, well, Honorable Farah Maalim says that, you know, the president and the others should literally ignore the DP. And one would want to argue that that's what has technically happened in the country. In all honesty, what other direction would the DP take, you know, that should not be castigated based on, you know, that realization that, well, after all, it's like I am not needed, and maybe just decides to take a different direction. The kitchen seems so hot or too hot for him, but he has said that he's not stepping out anyway.
When we were offline, me and Mheshimiwa were having a conversation on what we call the benefits of being in power.
Yeah.
And the DP is a beneficiary of power. Right now, he's a DP.
Yes.
That doesn't change. Whether the kitchen is hot, it's cold, it's freezing, or just raining.
It's nice to be in power.
It's, you know, it's just nice to be in power. He, you know, he's enjoying the office of the DP 100%, as it is in the Constitution. We've seen deputy governors being done all this and that by their bosses.
Yeah.
You know, no vehicles, no offices, no staff. But the DP has enjoyed all benefits of power.
Yeah.
Thinking that he will leave is a lie.
Right.
He can't. This is a man who have worked for that seat since he was young.
Yes.
He sat next to power, but he have never been into power. From 1990, Kanu, he sat next to Moi for 10 years.
Yes.
Came in, sat next to Raila, and under ODM and the Grand Coalition. He sat next to Kibaki. Then come 2013, he sat in power. So telling him to leave and go back to sit next to power. And in Kenya, it is just impossible. Let's not lie.
Yes.
Because DP supporters are in a phase of themselves with their boss, who's a DP. DP is power. They are working to get to power. So you're practically looking at two people who are walking same route, but one of them is walking and the other one is driving. So practically, it's a matter of the DP is just enjoying a ride at 5 km per hour at one moment because there are supporters who are walking at that pace. But at another moment, he's enjoying 100 km per hour when he's getting all the motorcades, all the choppers, all the securities, a state house, all that. He attends cabinet. We've never read here on media that has been, that he has been told not to attend a cabinet.
He's not been told, but at some point in time he was in absence, after.
By choice.
Yes, by choice.
Which went ahead and said, nilikuwa nimetumwa kazi na mdosi. So, hakusema niliambiwa na mdosi nisikuje.
Yeah.
No. So, we are making statements because ANC, Wiper, and all other party, including ODM, they want to be in power. Jubilee is in power. Ruto is the DP. That one we should never forget. Him stepping out, I can bet here, he's not.
Well, he probably said so. He acknowledged that, how watu walinitoa huko wakafikiri wanaweza kuja kunitoa hapa kwa Jubilee. Hiyo ni ndoto ya mchana. I do not know just how much he's able to...
Chama ni tofauti sana na serikali. So we are talking about Jubilee party, but we have government.
Jubilee, the government, because, well, it runs the government.
Exactly.
Structures are totally different.
Yes, the structures are totally different.
Okay. Those party structures probably they are constituted for a term that has no term to expire, but elective positions have constituted time. If the head of state, you must seek 2 terms to complete your tenure. Yes.
Then where is this Jubilee Asili UDA culminating from? While we acknowledge that, well, after all, in as much as there's a difference, in these two, reality is that if you are at the helm, then you have to be under this party at least as a deputy president.
One thing that I would just carry the narrative that my friend, my panelist has just put on the table, that in fact, this country is headed to an election in 2022. So the UDA is just a vessel prepared to take a certain group to the State House.
All right.
And that is it. And let me tell you,
it will be active. That is after.
Any journey that you prepare for tomorrow, you must start it preparing. The preparation has to start today.
Okay.
We are only 2 years down, more than less than 1.5 years to election. And that therefore, anybody who is a serious contender must start preparing. And the issue to do with the Jubilee is only left for what we call, I can say, PR, public relation, nothing else.
Right.
Otherwise, issues to do with farm, issues with the Jubilee as a party, it is as good as dead.
All right.
Yes.
Well, Honorable Farah Maalim, and now let's talk about the president, who's actually the head of Jubilee Party. We have constantly looked at his utterances, and in most cases, many people argue that probably he is in to shock someone. Do you suppose that over the weekend he dropped the shock? And when we look at his utterances over the weekend, do you suppose then, or maybe we would want to ask, to what extent do you suppose the president would want to leave a cohesive country based on that?
Well, I think he does intend to leave a cohesive country. There's no question about that, because when he brought on board all the major opposition parties and the biggest bloc that was against him last time, which is the NASA bloc, in their own, ANC, ODM, WIPA, he brought in all these people who are, or rather these entities and centers that were opposed to him. The idea is to leave a united country. I don't know how economically viable that country will be, because we have a serious economic meltdown. But as for purposes of unity, yes, he intends to leave a united country behind. The cost of sometimes his own the unity of his own party, or the vehicle that took him to power. And that's what the statesman is about, to be honest to you. I mean, at some stage, you begin looking way above and way beyond in a very lonely manner than everybody else to see what kind of a legacy you want to leave behind. So the country will be united. There's no question about that. I'm inclined to believe that the BBI will see the light of the day. There's a lot of discontent in the mountain region. But by and large, once he goes to those places, I think there's still a lot of support and a lot of love for him in his own backyard. And of course, the rest of the country is also looking at a united country. He dropped a bombshell, which for all intents and purposes is also a valid thing. He said this country does not belong to only two communities, and we don't have to produce the presidents only from those two communities. And unfortunately for our brother William Ruto, he happens to be from one of those two communities that have held the helm of this country from day one until today. So he is breaking, loose from all those things, in my opinion, and I think he will leave behind a united country. Economically, we are looking at very rough times ahead, and I think we will probably have somebody on the house on the hill who is neither from the mountain region nor from Kalenjin Rift Valley. So, and I think that is a very powerful, timely statement, in my opinion.
And when we're talking about the utterances of the president, which Honorable Gakuya says, were roadside declarations that were made upon pressure, I do not know whether there was so much pressure coming, or mated upon the president, or technically it's what he had in mind. But when we talk about this and acknowledge the fact that we pride in our tribes and in our communities, the Kikuyus are likely to stay for more than half a century in the event, that is for them to get to power again, in the event that, of course, they're going to vote someone from a different tribe. Let's take, for instance, that card of Right Honorable Raila Odinga. Would you suppose they would go for him, or they would push for him because they know, well, age would root him out? And if age is going to root him out, then they stand a chance of getting into power before the entire, half century elapses. And if it is not the case, then what would it mean for this, great, so to speak, community? Because, well, it carries the largest chunk in the country.
Leader, there's somewhere we we are not getting right.
Yes.
We are not talking about rotational presidency. No. What has been taught to be what is we call a democratic state is where the majority have their say and the minority have their the majority have their way and the minority have their say. Yes, that's what the theorists and the and the Socrates and the rest told us is what defines all the rule of law. But what I like, one day when we went for the BBI Meru, BBI won the task force to correct review, the Governor Meru made a statement that caught my attention. He said that what has been brought to us as as government and power and forms of government is good for them that came to it with us. But can we have democracy made in Kenya? What does that mean? It means that Kikuyu have numbers, yes. They can match, they can come in and say, all what we need is two or other tribes. Then we have the way. Because that's what the constitution say, that the highest numbers win. But now, does that make Kenya a united nation? No. As Uhuru wants it to be? No. So what the president could have meant in details, because you see, we look at headlines, we look at statements, but we don't want to analyze them and have research and all that to just see where he's coming from. He's saying, even if we can dominate this seat forever, we feel, and our numbers will will always tarry, and we will always win. I would wish the same numbers we have, we rethink whether we can get someone else who we can trust with our nation to lead us and give him or her our numbers.
Raila?
I've always tried to avoid picking an individual for 2022.
In this case, the time.
Because in this case, like I repeated here, Mheshimiwa will tell you, 2001, Kibaki was not a presidential candidate.
Yes.
It was KANU with Uhuru, and Kenya had Wamarwa, Raila was there, everybody was there. Then NAC, it shifted from Ngilu, Wamarwa, Kibaki, and they were like, let's give Kibaki. Then it came in. 2011, it was Mudavadi, Raila, Kalonzo. 2012 came in Uhuru. So I'm not trying to avoid Ruto or Raila for no apparent reason, because I wouldn't say, I wouldn't say anything. But for the state of affairs it is today, and looking at how far we have gone since we began the multi-party democracy of 2002, because for me, I believe the multi-party started in 2002, not 1992. Okay. So we've always had a presidential candidate coming in a year before election, unless it shifts now. And one thing we should know is Kenyans hate politics as much as they talk about it. And it's human nature to just get fed up by, by too much talk. If I was a presidential candidate today, and a serious one, I would be focusing on addressing what matters for the nation today, not what matters for the election tomorrow.
Well, in most cases, you look at it and you see this in paper, you see these policies, you see these great ideologies that these leaders bring. But when tomorrow comes, it's a whole different affair. We're still on this card of 2022. I do not know how easy it would be to sell Raila on these sides of the mountain or Mount Kenya region. I do not know what cards would come in. The Musalia Mudavadi factor, the Kalonzo Musyoka factor, and I think also this will ask Honorable Farah Maalim later, because he is an official for Wiper Party. I would love to know what his party plans for tomorrow. But then again, they had said that they're headed for the presidency. When you look at what is playing out right now, do you suppose there's going to be an easy ride for Kenyans, as going to be an easy ride for most of these leaders if we're to take that direction of tribe?
Let me say first and foremost, I want to distance myself completely with the views of the head of state. Because for a leader who is heralding what we call the symbol of unity, he should never invoke the element of tribe. Because one, it is trying to tell Kenyans they were a fool when they made him president.
Okay.
Because he knew very well he was succeeding a Kikuyu president. Then the element of that, the nation was ripe and mature to go to another tribe, was equally ripe at his time of commencing his campaign to seek for the position.
Yeah.
We cannot drive ourselves out of our structures in our constitution. And at a point that we think that we have an idea that's better to take the mantle of this country beyond where we are, then we must enshrine it, anchored it somewhere. We are now in the preparing of BBI. The president, in his own thinking that this country is now can forget about the two tribes and move somewhere, if that is something that he can be able to persuade Kenyans to that direction, should we look how we can be able to frame it in this BBI, put it somewhere there, so that at least we have somewhere to go by.
Your last statement suggests that it's valid.
But in this particular point, assume we have a candidate in the what we call Mount Kenya region who feels that his time to lead has come.
Right.
We have a candidate like Ruto who happens to come from what we call Karajin area. Do you want to tell them democratically we are going to shut him out from the competition because purely he's a Karajin by nature, and Moi took this country somewhere? Ruto probably was not even born when Moi was the king. Who will be able to delay the son of Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta to contest in Gatundu because he was a former member of parliament for Gatundu? It is not important to take some elements if we are not sure whether it can take this country somewhere of any value.
But
let me tell you, so that I can give you an opportunity. One, you cannot blackmail communities. Tell them you can't. This country can with a very fast drive unite together against the others if they feel they have numbers. But if you think that you can push them out, you can persuade them. But before you speak this to the public, first of all, sit down, find out whether this is something which you can wreck the country or not. But I can see the statement was not done in the right time. Yes, and as I repeat, it was under and out of pressure.
Is it because it's coming from the president? Honorable Gakuya, reality, and I think Honorable Farah Maalim at some point has said, you know what, there is a valid point in what it is that the president has said. The people from the marginalized community, and you know, the fact that you can see the likes of Mulembe Nation saying that, you know, it's now time that we stop carrying the briefcase and find ourselves at the top of the helm, would probably agree to the statements of President Uhuru Kenyatta. And just like we've pushed for affirmative action, especially for the women, to get the leaders and the women at the top of the helm, one would want to argue then, if we do not go it radical, if we do not take this approach, then we might end up having the very same communities at the top of the helm, which will be unfair for the other communities.
I can tell you for sure, Linda, what we must do is to remove the kind of hypocrisy, a kind of political hypocrisy. It is very painful, because we are agitating to have an expansion of what we call executive. We create prime minister. Are we creating this prime minister if you are sure? And you are telling Kenyans they are sure. Are we creating for Pokomo? Are we going to see a Pokomo as a prime minister? Are we going to see a deputy president as a Turkana? Are we going to see the deputy prime minister as what we call a Somalia? If this is the case, I will be going to be the happiest person. All right. Let us not create a plate of a section of some tribes in Kenya.
Is there
let us move Kenya as a nation as wide as it, and remove these kind of colonial elements of boundaries. Let us create these boundaries of tribalism. They are very painful. They are those communities who also have qualities, ability to lead this country. Do we lock them because they don't come from big communities? It is unfair. Because you can't tell us if it is not Kikuyu today, tomorrow it is Aruya or Aru. Why not Bokomo?
Yes. All right, and speaking of which, Honorable Farah Maalim, coming to you, if we are to take this conversation, do you foresee a scenario where we're going to be very honest with the discussion and probably instigate conversations like those ones that Honorable Gakuya, you know, proposes, that we should get deeper into this and probably, you know, bring some of our own who have been marginalized for the longest most of time that probably could not find themselves somewhere along the big 5 tribes in the country?
Well, I think we're headed in that direction. I have every reason to believe that the system that we are trying we are trying to adapt now is a parliamentary system, basically. It's a mixture of parliamentary and executive system. And that will, by and large, bring out the best to hold the positions of relevance in there. By the way, we were close to having, in the single party days, in Moi's days, we had what was called the head of civil service, who was the chief secretary, was the de facto prime minister in the country. And you have to understand that at one time we had Nyachai as head of civil service, which was a Kisi, is compared to all the other 5 big tribes as a smaller tribe. We also had Farah Spindwa, who's a Pokomo, as the head of civil service. And I think the possibility of having a prime minister coming from Turkana or coming from Tana River or coming from other minorities in the country like Marlal or Marsabit or Riza is not that far-fetched under this new system. There's a genuine efforts in this new architecture to make sure that it's not only the big tribes that are going to go into an alliance and try and corner power. For your information, the presumption that the big tribes have or wherever the Kikuyus go, or wherever the mountain region goes, is easily going to be the side that will succeed, has been proven wrong on a number of occasions. The elections of 2007 was not won by Kibaki, and everybody knows. The elections of 2013 was not won by Jubilee. And to be fair to everybody knows. 2017 is another one which is highly contested. So there is no 1 or 2 tribes that can come together and say that, look, we are 2 big tribes, so this is the biggest tribe, the biggest center, all it needs is one small other one. No. That only comes to the extent to which, again, a lot of rigging can be justified in that the numbers are close. But winning, in my opinion, on those considerations will never happen. It's never happened before, and it will never happen in the future. It only happened once at the time of independence when the Luos and the Kikuyus came together in Kanu and won against Kadu, which was for the smaller tribes. And that was because the Kikuyus and the Luos were more enlightened than the other Kenyans, and they all came out to vote. The rest of the country did not vote. But then put together, they will still have made less than 40% of the overall population in the country. So you still have the 60 plus or 70% of the other ethnic communities. So our diversity and the fact that we have 40 all different ethnic communities and we have all these regions is in a sense a strength that unites us. I like the way Gakuya is saying it, putting it. We're all looking forward to having a country where the content of your character is basically the judgment that one needs to consider for purposes of offices and not the community that you come from or the language you speak. So, and I hope that will be, the country is progressively, slowly, but progressively inching towards that kind of a consideration in the past. I mean, I ran for a deputy speaker one time in opposition, and I got a lot of votes from the other side. That's because there are many friends who felt that party affiliation was not going to determine or decide which side they were going to vote. They had other considerations to make, and most of it was on the basis of merit. So we have a country where our people want to be united. It's only the politicians who keep on dividing the people, and I think we'll get over that in time too.
Okay. All right, and Rodriguez Bijon is watching and says, watching now, how will ANC with few members of parliament impeach DP? We know ODM and Keleweke will support it, but Ruto is a fighter and the motion will not see the light of day. There are a couple of messages coming on board in regards to talk of Game Plan 2022. As we proceed, we get to sample them. But coming to a different view altogether. And we all agree that 2022 politics will be about a lot of things. BBI will play out in this case based on how we're going to politic around it and what direction it will take. But also there's that aspect of, kurudisha mkono, kulipa deni and all that. And I mean, some have argued that probably the president owes the DP, ile aspect of kwamba I put you there, so you need to pay back. And that is a notion that was sold. I remember I was there at that point when President Uhuru Kenyatta was being sworn in. And, all these chantings that si uchawi ni maombi and 2022 Ruto, it sounded like it was almost certain that the president is going to support the DP come 2022, but it's almost a different affair. But not to overlook 2022, even, in the future politics of the nation, there's also that aspect of, the late retired president, Moi, fronted President Uhuru Kenyatta. That is like he was paying his political debt to Mzee, and may also their souls rest in eternal peace. But equally, there's that conversation that probably, again, President Uhuru Kenyatta was supposed to again say, now it is time that we pay back Mzee and we endorse Gideon Moi. So all these factors constant and all these factors playing out, the DP is looking at Mount Kenya to see what it is that the people from that region are going to do to him to pay debt. So there's a lot of debt that needs to be paid as we look around. Can we overlook this factor, and just how then does it get to play even in the politics of the future?
Thanks, leader. Let me say, like Mheshimiwa here have said it, that he's looking forward for a day that Turkana will be head of state.
Yes.
Yet, when the president sets the pace for that, he disagrees.
So I only say that it's just a
he disagrees.
Okay, he has to start from somewhere.
Yes,
this is just
it has to start from somewhere. So, where are we headed? Are we looking at, and like I said in my earlier opinion, are we looking at 45 million Kenyans as a nation, all 5 aspirants, and their deni na promises? The same way, we would say that what the president said in Vihiga was a roadside declaration. We can say all these promises, yangu kumi, yako kumi, it's in the same rank. It's a roadside
declaration.
Declaration. Right. It's not anchored on law. So we have to use a similar marking scheme.
Okay.
So if today's statement cancels yesterday, then we can only look forward for another one that will cancel
the current one. Okay.
So and that's why I've I'm saying that by the time we are getting to that ballot, there'll be 1,000,001 statements, roadside declarations, MOUs, because Kenya from 2002 it has always been a coalition election, 2002, 2007, 2013, 2017. So what makes us think that come 2022, Gideon Moi will go alone, Ruto will go alone, Raila will go alone, and it will be so.
Yeah.
It will, even Ruto at the back of his mind, he knows he cannot take it alone.
So we are likely to see
a lot of formations, coalitions, overnight meetings.
Okay.
You know, all those sending as in like emissaries here and there. So it's not. Let's not look at the presidential election as an MC election or an MP election where everybody goes alone against the other. These are national matter that have international stake in it, that has investors, both local, foreigners. Everything must be put on the table.
Okay.
As much as now we may want to talk about my tribe and this and that, and if Mheshimiwa Farah got votes to be the deputy speaker from Mount Kenya region, what makes us think that he cannot get the same votes as our head of state?
The Mount Kenya vote is actually the biggest vote that causes a headache right now.
And you see, they made him, Mount Kenya votes made him deputy speaker. We knew he wasn't one of us. But our representatives on our behalf voted him. Why can't we escalate that a step further? It has to be through a process. BBI says, for us to get there, let's start now. Let's reduce president and DP, and let's extend maybe PM and DPM. So what have we done? We've moved from cabinet speakers, deputy speakers, now to executive. So in 10 years' time, we will get there. By the way, okay, let me say this. There's something people are forgetting. Mount Kenya are not fed up with
the DP?
No, the presidency.
The president.
We are not.
Yes.
We are not. So they should not think we are, we are just tunaitupa ni kama ni moto ya
You've just been rented.
Yeah,
just
like
been rented briefly.
As in like we are fed up now, you guys can take it. No. We can have it again and again and again and again.
And what is right there? Maybe I should, before I come to you, Honorable Gakuya, maybe this is the hypocritical nature that Gakuya speaks about, Honorable Farah Maalim, that he says, you know what, while we might want to say that indeed we want to have a conversation where another tribe will get at the top of the helm, reality is that there's a nature of, hypocrisy in our politics today. And in most cases, you'll hear that even as the Mount Kenya bosses or leaders bargain about this or speak of affronting somebody else, they will always say, what is there for us? Are we going to take number 2? Are we going to be somewhere at the top? Are we going to be on the table? We cannot overlook that.
No, we can't overlook that. Yes, indeed, yes. Let me say, Mheshimiwa, you put it very, very well. By the way, there's one thing I am going to make straight today for the record.
Yeah.
When I won the deputy speaker's position in 2008, the presumption among most Kenyans was that the Somali or the Muslims in PNU voted for me, as opposed to when we were going through, because the vote for the speaker, Marende against Kaparo, was very tight. It was just one vote that determined. In my case, within the first round, I already had a margin of over 16 votes. And that it was not the Muslims, it was not the Somalis in PNU who voted for me. Actually, it was other Kenyans, the likes of Kabando, Mreidi, who is now a governor, Harun Mau, the list is basically there. And those were the ones who decided we will vote for Farah, because we had known one another for a very long time during the struggle. And here was issue of merit. Here was issue of thinking of the country more than anything else. Okay. And I think that is likely to happen in the future too. I agree entirely with what Mheshimiwa Gakuya is saying. Mheshimiwa is saying. And I think it's only us, the leaders, who have a tendency of dividing Kenyans. Look at the kind of votes that Sonko got, both as a Senate candidate and also as the governor candidate. In both cases, regardless of. But the reality of the matter is that the Kenyan voters in Nairobi were not thinking along tribal or ethnic lines. They were thinking about something else, like a service delivery. Okay, to the extent which the mountain needs to have a certain security, yes, it's expected. By the way, politics is always run and managed and micromanaged by a small clique, which for lack of better word, you can call it the deep state, or you can call it the deep people who. So basically, I see a lot of merit in what Mheshimiwa is saying. Okay. And that is definitely part of the horse trading, yes.
All right. Well, even as we close on this debate, I know there's so much that we'd have loved to touch on. We do not go without speaking about the BBI briefly, Honorable Gakuya. It is also one factor that will determine what direction the 2022 politics will take.
Just to expound my point of political hypocrisy.
Make it brief, yes.
Very briefly. My notion in this is that if we are sure that we are not planning to look for a mega coalition that will give people a win in a particular election, then I want somebody to persuade me out of that, because I believe all what is happening today is nothing else. It's pure a succession tool, and this is what we are preparing. Yes. That's why you find that even the president is very agitated to that the issue to do with the BBI, so that the BBI can be processed and become a law that will give a room to accommodate these kingpins. And you know he has already aligned them together. And especially he's now running totally in the NASA team. This one, I am saying it's a hypocritical tool because his statement surely was to put a bombshell to kill the candidature of Ruto.
Okay.
Yes, because the ground has totally changed and the national nation has gone against them.
Right.
And therefore, you must bring a narrative that will change now the seeing of things. Then you will bring Kenyans in another angle. See, already Kalenjin has been there for 20-something years. Already Kikuyus has been there, which to me, it is a political hypocrisy.
Is that how much the president despises his DP, a man he's worked hand in hand with? Is it genuine? Is it fair to say that that statement was directed towards flowing the move by the DP in the country? Briefly.
I doubt what Farah said is very true, because we cannot. Kenya democracy and elections, it's not a monarch. It's not a preserve of inheritance. It is about who wins more numbers. Okay. The Hazardous nation, as Mheshimiwa Gakuya wants us to believe, is that they are entitled to what they believe is theirs. Whereas it is democracy of who convinces more. Okay. So anytime a contrary opinion comes through, they come offensive. Instead of them being debatable or democratic about it. Okay. So as we edge towards 2022, I can always say that the president has, like we said, he's the head of state and the Jubilee Party leader. The Jubilee Party leader had a promise with his deputy, but the head of state has no promise with an individual. He has a promise with the nation. Okay. That's all. All right, as we close this, Honorable Farah Maalim on the BBI. I know you're a proponent, but then again, what's important is what is there for the people of Kenya. When we talk matters politics, do you suppose then that this will be the ultimate instrument to quell the uncertainties and the electoral, intolerance that we always experience after every 5 years? And moving forward, how then will it shape the conversation of 2022 politics?
Well, I think BBI on its own, there are a lot of good things in BBI. And I'm frankly worried about the future of this country. And I think BBI can put a lot of those fears into rest. As to the narrative, I think, this country has seen for a very long time a situation in which politics, Moi was the vice president of Kenyatta for many, many years. Yeah. And the idea, and Moi, the tradition that has been put in place is one in which you sit on a block of ice with your pants down, and it's a very unsavory, it's a very difficult position being number two. Being a vice president of the United States, I remember reading the history of Lyndon B. Johnson, and he said it's the most difficult thing to perform. Yeah. Because you're there doing things at the pleasure of number one. And it stays very, very firmly in the Constitution also. That's why Moi literally was there to be told what to do every inch along the way by Kenyatta. Right. When we created the NAC government of 2002 with Kibaki at the helm, and with the presumption that NAC government, which was there, was going to have a vice. The idea was to create what we said at that time was going to be a chief minister-like kind of a thing, have Raila as the number two. But again, there was a bit of impatience on the part of my friend Raila. Yeah. And anytime there's an impatience on the part of the number two, number one gets alarmed. It's now normal, it's natural. It happened to Obasanjo when he had Aliyu Atiku. It happened to everybody. And yes, Abubakar. So I think our friend number two was in a hurry, was in a serious hurry. And that of course is expected. But of course, things can never be that good between themselves because you get worried. You seriously get worried. The idea and the trick is that sit tight until this thing is passed on to you. Right. But when you run around and you start a new election, what do you call a campaign process, within weeks of concluding another election after the petition, it worries everybody. It worries everybody, and it's natural what is being happening now. And I do see the parallels in many other jurisdictions before. You just have to sit tight and enjoy the specter of being number 2, which is the most unsavory thing, which of course Ruto was not able to do that. And I think he's going to pay dearly for that. I mean, it happens everywhere, I can tell you.
All right, thank you so much, Honorable Farah. Maalim, I know Honorable Gakuya wants to react. I can only give you 30 seconds and nothing more. In defense of the DP?
Of course, yes. What I would say, Linda, before we conclude,
yes.
Let us also allow that actually we have a constitution that gives right to every one of us. And DP is having an ambition to become or succeed to the politics of this country as a head of state. It's not a crime. And therefore, I don't find a situation why we are hunting him as if he's a Mandela. He's not. Yes. And what we can do is just to leave Kenyans to the freedom they are given and power by the constitution, exercise it, give us the next president fairly. And I don't see why the head of state is taking so much rigorous persuasion to mobilize the kingpins together for a certain motive. This is not fair at this point. The head of state should stand as a referee in this and hand over powers.
Well, it's a game of interest, and it's never unfair when it comes to politics.
But what I'm saying, it's to be unfortunate. Probably the president has his own view, and he may be having his direction that he needs to leave this country. Probably the Kenyans may be having another different view, and the power is to people. So finally, the people will speak. Finally, the people will speak. And I think the people should be given what we call prerogative to decide.
The conversation when we
prerogative to decide. Prerogative to decide.
No. 30 seconds only.
You see, the constitution is very clear. The constitution is very clear. The functions of the DP is at the behest of the president. Yes. The deputy president does not have any functions outside what is delegated to him by the president on a day-to-day basis. So that constitution is very clear. To assume that the president, Ruto, is conforming to the constitution, no, it's not conforming to the constitution. The constitution is very clear. It's clear on the American constitution. It's clear on our constitution. It's clear.
No, he's not in colony. He has his democratic exercise, his democracy.
You want to say something in 30 seconds, or we close it at that?
Let me conclude and say.
Let's have this conclusion, a fair conclusion for that matter.
Okay.
He will be undermined by the president and every president.
But he's not behind the bars. He is.
What I like is the president, like I repeated and said, unlike the governors and the deputies, the president has given his deputy a free will, not only to do what is constitutional, but also what he thinks is personal for him as a DP. So as much as people think that the president is undermining the deputy, I swear, and I don't want to swear, but I can bet, if it was the other way around, I doubt Ruto would allow his deputy to do what he's doing him as a deputy.
Okay, that's an interesting one. Pius Nunda is watching and he says the problem in this country is political or betrayal. Yes, even as the head of state says it's a time for other communities to lead. That might just be a roadside declaration. Well, probably in agreement with you. I wish our leaders would be guided as they politic. We have children who are sitting on the floor under the tree, what you called marginalized. Now, why should we have marginalized zones in a country 58 years after independence? Let Kenyans elect him or which they want to lead them. The president has served his term, whether he won it or not. Ruto the same. Let them both get out of the scene. Allow Kenyans to decide what Ruto have failed to curb in terms of corruption and others equally. Another one, out of focus now should be education, health, youth, how to improve our economy and find out how doctors can be paid, and so much so coming on board, but we won't be able to sample all of them because we have to cross over to a different conversation altogether about the fate of the ball child. That is on Matter Social Life after this break. Gentlemen, James Gakuya, Member of Parliament, Embakasi North, and we also have Goko Irungu, political analyst. Goko is quite a tongue twister. Goko, right? Not Goko. Goko. Nah, it sounds very good, but pretty much hard to pronounce. And lastly, Honorable Farah Maalim, former Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly and also a Wiper Party official. It was good having you, gentlemen. Thank you so much. Looking forward to have you some other time. Thank you.